Luigi's Mansion is a game I love to break, and that probably isn't a surprise if you've watched this channel before. The game is simple in its flow of events and structure of the map, which makes messing with stuff a lot of fun. Previously, I've broken things like trying to catch all the portrait ghosts before ever emptying the vacuum in Egad's lab, or accidentally breaking Vincent Van Gogh's room to trigger the ultimate ghost fight, which is very difficult. I do not recommend. Today I want to try sequence breaking the flow of the game as a whole, alongside trying to mess with certain situations to see what results we can find. For example, what if you beat Boolossus at the start of the game before releasing the booze? How about just capturing one of the twin ghosts and not the other, and turning that into a painting? We have quite a lot to cover, so I hope you enjoy this bizarre adventure as we sequence break Luigi's Mansion. I love breaking games, and it's through the generous support of sponsors like Myths of Moonrise that allow me to keep doing what I do best: breaking stuff. Myths of Moonrise is a combat-focused match 3 strategy game set in a world full of supernatural creatures like werewolves, demons, and this bald guy with a hammer. You'll recruit new heroes, rebuild homes, explore, and battle against the fallen, dark forces set on consuming the land. You play as a newly restored mighty lord who commands a slew of heroes. There's a wide range of abilities and strategies to master as you battle your way to victory and secure alliances. There's also plenty of regular updates to the game, introducing new content alongside the main storyline. To celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the game's launch, a new carnival event has arrived with new heroes, skins, and challenges to overcome. Why not give your heroes a new look with the new Dusk Palace skins? So if you are ready to take the throne, you can start your adventure by clicking my link in the description below. And if you use my code on screen now, new users will get a huge anniversary gift as well. And a big thanks to Myths of Moonrise for sponsoring this video and supporting me as a creator. So here's a very quick breakdown of Luigi's Mansion's key events. Luigi arrives at the mansion, spawns in a key, and then meets Egad in a cutscene. We then go to the lab, train with him, and come back to the mansion. From this point forward, only certain events pull us out of the mansion and back into Egad's lab. This is either defeating an area boss or letting out the booze for the first time. Saving and reloading does this as well. So, key plot points are re-entering the first room to see the portraits shake as the first ghosts appear, defeating Chauncey, freeing the booze in Area 2, defeating Bogmire, defeating Boolossus in Area 3, triggering the blackout, and then defeating King Boo in Area 4. So now that you know that, let's talk about Boolossus. Boolossus as a boss is awful, but it presents an interesting opportunity. So, defeating Boolossus does quite a lot of things. For one, it advances us to Area 4, it then triggers the blackout afterwards, and it gives us 15 boos. And that gives us quite a lot to work with, especially since we can go anywhere we want in this mansion right away. So we get our poltergust, and then we head straight upstairs. Now, normally you need 20 boos in order to access Boolossus, otherwise you'll get warped back to the start of the mansion. However, we can just go in the back door, and as long as we get on that balcony, we will see the ring of boos and we can fight them. However, important note here, do not go into this boss fight without the ice ability, which I don't have, which is going to make me have a very bad time. So let me go get ice real fast and come back, and now we have ice and now we're fighting Boolossus. So 70 years later, after this boss fight has concluded, we get ourselves a key and we move on to Area 4. Now as you can see, as we're going through the Ghost Portrificationizer, the only ghost we're putting through here is Boolossus, and this warps us from a timeline stance from Area 1 to Area 4, the final area in the game. Now, Area 4 sets us up for the blackout, but we also just got 15 boos. And this is interesting because we haven't opened the cage to let the boos out yet. So even though we have 15 out of 50, and it looks like boos are active in this mansion, they actually aren't. No boos will spawn in until we go and open that cage. So let's go back now and open that cage and let the boos out and see what happens. So opening this holding area triggers a warp back to Egad's lab, and nothing really interesting happened, so we're actually going to undo this now and save it for later. Now we're going to go back to the blackout in just a second, but I want to talk about boos for just a moment longer. So if we start the game over and we get our vacuum cleaner and we go immediately to free the boos and then come back to the mansion, this will allow us to straight up clear the first room and capture a boo in the same instance. So I had no issues doing this on the US version of the game. However, for some reason, when going back to get extra footage for a modified Hidden Mansion run on the PAL version, spawning boos by doing the same sequence of events would make the boos come out and they would say their name, but then they would instantly disappear. And as soon as this happened, they would go back into the furniture. So I'm not entirely sure why this was happening, but it was a repeatable thing that I could do. Now let's go back to that blackout. So we're going to rewind time and go back to before we let the boos out, right after Boolasis. So the only thing we've done in the game is defeat Boolasis. And now we're going to trigger the blackout event, which happens if you approach this door on the balcony. So with the blackout event triggered, the mansion transforms back into a very dark place. So all the hallway areas before this were actually lit up, only because we defeated Boolasis, so it advanced the plot so that all of them were clear. However, the blackout makes everything unlit, so now going back through it, everything is dark. Now if we go back to that boo holding room, the storage area, the blackout does not let you hit the switches on the wall, similar to if this room was unclear. Luigi presses the button, but nothing happens. However, something interesting is that the blackout ghosts are able to spawn anywhere in this room, including beyond the wall that has yet to be moved. So if we were to go back there, we would actually fall through the floor to the basement. And if the ghosts spawn back here, they will do the same. They will fall through the floor and they will despawn once they get out of the range of this room. And this is kind of neat because I didn't realize that ghosts needed solid ground to walk in Luigi's Mansion. Even though they're floating, gravity still applies to them and they will fall through this floor. So even if we rewind time and we move this wall back and then trigger the blackout and then go back in this room, the back switch itself will also not work. Now, normally, this is an impossible situation because you can never be in this instance when the room is dark, but the button back here also does not work when the room is dark. And given it's a blackout, you cannot clear this room at all because the lights won't come on even if you do. So I love the blackout because it forces an overall state across the entire mansion, regardless of the progress the player has supposedly made. So for example, all the portrait ghosts are gone during the blackout. Even if we haven't captured them yet, they will not appear except for that weird uncle dude. This also applies for King Boo as well. So trying to go into that final room, King Boo normally will blow you away if you haven't gotten the correct number of boos. However, this event doesn't take place in the hallway because the game is in a different state. And the game does not know what to do, so when you walk down this hallway, the game just crashes. And the same thing happens if we go into the altar room, and King Boo is normally there, but if we walk to the center of the room, the game will also crash and get hung up because he is not there. So the game is calling upon like a cutscene that involves King Boo, but the model is not present, so the game just self-destructs. But it is kind of neat going to the back of the altar and interacting with the objects on the wall that you normally cannot access due to the hitbox radius for this cutscene. Now the blackout causes another issue, which is it disallows the player from saving. Saving is disabled in the blackout because the player cannot talk to Toad, and no boos can be captured during the blackout. Both of these prompt a save, and just to clarify, collecting any of Mario's items does not prompt one, so we can't use that. However, we can force the game to save and then reload. In doing so, will bring us back to EGAD's lab, and upon exiting the lab, we will now be in a glitched state of the mansion. So all the extra ghosts that appear during the blackout are no longer present, however, all the lights are still forced to be off always. And what's kind of odd is that certain portrait ghosts are back, but others are not. For example, Neville is here, but Lydia isn't. We can see Neville here rocking in his chair, but if we go to the master bedroom, we'll find that Lydia is not at her mirror, and even if we try to pull back the curtain to open the window, nothing will happen. There's no enemy ghosts, and there is no Lydia. Now, if you try to clear a room during this glitched mansion state, the room's reward, whether it be a key or an elemental metal, will not spawn in, since the lights are forced off. So a room is going to reset if you defeat all the ghosts and clear it, but then leave the room and come back, you'll find yourself having to fight those same ghosts again. Now, the same logic does not apply to the portrait ghost rooms. If we vacuum up Neville, the room will be cleared technically, but the treasure chest will not spawn. And if we exit the room and come back in, Neville will also not respawn. If this was not the case, we could capture multiple Nevilles and also get infinite pearls. Now, if we go and turn the power back on, upon entering the hallway by Neville's room, we will hear the chest spawn in. And entering this room now shows us that the process for the sequence of events for this room is now finished. Something really funny though is if you try vacuuming a portrait ghost and pull them out of the room, if there's another portrait ghost nearby, their HP will transfer to them as the original portrait ghost unloads. So the HP is transferred to Spooky the dog in the backyard, and we get pulled across the master bedroom, taking lots of damage and forcing us into the backyard. However, once the power is restored, Lydia then reappears in her room. Moving on from this glitched blackout to something a bit different, I want to talk about the reverse gravity panels in Luigi's mansion. They're only used in a few rooms, and they allow Luigi to walk in the ceiling of that room. However, that functionality basically applies to any room or hallway. So if we were to leave a room with this intact, we would be able to walk on the ceiling all around the mansion. Walking to the observatory space area is a bit odd, as you do reach an artificial ceiling. In the basement area, if you're walking on the ceiling in cold storage, the icicles don't hurt you until they start falling. Also, you can stand on the ceiling outside, which is a bit funny, but walking around is problematic as there's no true ceiling. It is possible to glitch out of bounds and get stuck by abusing the Luigi flip animation too. So, you will get stuck on the edge of the hill out of bounds overlooking the graveyard. Also, if you didn't know this, Bogmire is stored out of bounds in the graveyard to the left, as long as you haven't activated them as a boss yet. You can find this stretchy purple ghost down here just chilling. The most odd thing about walking on the ceiling is that you aren't able to pass the second floor ceiling at all. Even trying to fall out of bounds doesn't work. If you were to try to jump to the ceiling while on the third floor or the roof, the game will force you to the nearest section below the third floor. Perhaps this was to make sure if the player fell out of bounds, they wouldn't be able to access higher floors that are later on in the game. Or to prevent the player from falling up in the sky. It's hard to say why the second floor has this hard cap and prevent a barrier set in place though. Let's talk about sequence breaking the twin room now. So the twin encounter normally forces us to capture both twins in order to clear the room. But what if we only capture one of them? So the twin area event goes like this. You spin around the ceiling helicopters, which causes both twins to appear. They tell you to wait outside while they hide, and then when you come in, there are boxes around the room. You must find both twins in the boxes, and then the fight begins. So first, we're going to vacuum up Henry out of his car. After doing so, we will exit the room and try re-entering. By doing so, the fight will reset back to the boxes. If we then go and open the boxes, we'll find that Henry is still missing, even though his box opens up and he does talk. He won't be present in the fight either. So now we can go fight a boss. We'll do Bogmire real quick. After defeating Bogmire, we spawn on top of the roof because this game always spawns you after the farthest defeated boss, which was Boolossus. Once we go back and grab the key, we'll be prompted to use the ghost portrificationizer. As we empty our ghost out, we see that Henry is nowhere to be found. So the game didn't count him as being captured. So let's rewind time and now capture Orville. We vacuum him off the plane, defeat Bogmire again, and then run him through the machine. And surprisingly, the ghost portrait is printed with both Henry and Orville in it. So if we visit the gallery, we can see it is there, and going back to the mansion and triggering the fight again does something interesting. Both Henry and Orville will appear again to play hide and seek. But if we progress beyond this initial conversation, we'll notice that once the two have hidden, that only Henry is here. Orville is gone again, and so technically Orville is the only brother that actually needs to be captured. And with that, we wrap up our Luigi's Mansion sequence break. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, subscribe if you did, and I'll see all of you in the next one. Cheers!